All right, we can get started here.
Awesome.
All right, thanks everyone for joining. I just got a little bit of pre-announcements to make for ILC. Um, let's see, stay tuned for more Instagram live sessions next week. We got Jay Patel of Wintergreen Hospitality, Kelly, apologize if I'm butchering the name, Kelly Peen of Brand New, a collective, and Monica Lane of the Downtown Clifton will be joining us. Check out our Instagram and LinkedIn giveaways. We'll send you ILC keychains and t-shirts if you tag your friends in our post and tell them to follow us. So cool swag on the way. See the post on our profiles for more details. Finally, please consider donating to ILC. We rely heavily on our live events as our main source of revenue. We'd appreciate any donation to keep us going through this challenging time. You can donate on our website at ilcongress.com. So that's out of the way. My name is Stephen Chan. Thanks for joining this Instagram live session with John Flannigan of Wylder Hotels. John, we have been in touch for probably like 5-6 years now.
Yep.
I think you were just starting Wylder, maybe just before we had opened Hope Valley and Tillman, and we're just getting started when we connected. So I'd love to catch up and hear what latest and greatest you've been doing. I'd love to maybe start with your background and go from there. Oh, by the way, my name is Stephen Chan. I'm one of the founders of ILC with Andrew and Eric, a partner at Eagle Point Hotel Partners, a real estate investment platform, as well as partner in Sightline Hospitality, a management company focused on independent boutique hotels and soft branded hotels. And I've got John Flannigan here from Wylder.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Stephen.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to hear kind of your background, how you got started in the industry,
Sure.
and all that.
Yeah, so the quick is I started dishwashing when I was 15 years old and worked my way up to, in the kitchen and cooking. And then I became a waiter and all through college years and worked at some nice places and thought I wanted to become a chef. I actually went to culinary school and graduated and then went to Penn State Hotel School. And then, yeah, I started out with Wyndham Hotels and went through all their management training programs. And I was with them for 4 years all around the country and doing food and beverage and sales and marketing and became a hotel manager. And then I got a big break where Henry Callen in New York City hired me to be the opening GM of the Giraffe on Park and 26. And this is year 2000. And so I was 26 years old and I was the GM of the Giraffe, and that was a
Nice.
great gig. And I was there for 3 years and it was really successful. And boutique hotels were just getting started. A friend of mine, Brad Wilson, who you know well, was opening the W Union Square just down the street at the time, and Schrager had the Morgan's Hotel and the Royalton, and things
Mhm.
were really just starting to get kicked off. And then I went and opened the Roger, went to
Mhm.
work for a private equity fund and opened the Roger in Madison 31st, and I was there for 4 years, GM. And then went to work for Ace Hotels and met Alex Calderwood and joined them to open the Ace New York as GM, and worked with Zobler and wasn't Seidel yet, but worked with those guys, and then went back to JRK as president and took over a portfolio of 6 hotels, and I ran that as president for 6 years. And that was a great run, learning how to do acquisitions and repositions and
Mhm.
more on the finance side too. And from there, went to work at Proper Hotels and started their startup COO, and was there for a little less than 2 years, and then decided that I wanted to move on my own. And Wylder kind of came about because I don't want to say disenfranchised, but I was just not as excited about urban luxury downtown lifestyle hotels anymore, and
Mhm.
kind of yearned for places far away and distant, and something about going to a drive market 2 or 3 hours away where you feel like, you know, you could be somewhere completely different in the world was exciting to me. And so yeah, that's what kind of inspired me to go find these like historic or nostalgic, magical, whimsical
Hmm.
properties that the real estate cycle was peak. So, when I was looking at tertiary deals, we could acquire them at, below replacement costs because no one wasn't as much competition. And
Hmm.
so that's kind of, I developed the brand before we actually had a hotel. The brand
Hmm.
Wylder was about, you know, far out nature, surprising locations, soulful, experiential kind of properties that we could reimagine.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so, yeah, and the first property we took down was Tillman in the
And
Chesapeake Bay.
what was that? What time period was that?
Acquired it late 17 and
Uh-huh.
then opened, April of 18. And yeah, so now we're in our third season there.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And how did you come across Tillman? What was the did you grow, like have experiences there, or what's the connection?
Yeah, my best friend, his father owned a marina, a boatyard on Tillman
Hmm.
Island, which is a super waterman, like hardcore fishing, commercial fishing community, and had been going down there every summer and fell in love with it. It's, just a really authentic fisherman community. And
Hmm.
there was this famous place called Harrison's Chesapeake House that was just crazy wild, you know, hotel resort property, but it was a charter fishing business basically,
Right.
and there's a lot like presidents and governors and senators used to go there, and it had a very colorful reputation. Let's just say that.
Right. Like Roadhouse on the water, right? Yeah,
Pretty
yeah.
pretty pretty much. If the walls could speak, I mean, I could tell you stories for days, but it's pretty amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, like, why Wilder? Where does Wilder come from? What is the, um, what inspired you to create like Wilder? Why not something else?
Um, it's a great question. A friend of mine who you know well, I'm sure, Vincent Ficara with Revolver,
Hmm.
and he and I had done the Roger, and came up with the concept of the rebranding the Roger in 2010, and teamed up with him, and we really, hammered Wilder out through. Took us 6 months to come up with the concept and the name, and it just kind of spoke to like getting out in nature and something that, was out in the wild, but, not
Hmm.
Daytona Beach wild,
Right.
something a little bit more sophisticated and some femininity to it where,
Hmm.
maybe women would travel someplace that they wouldn't normally go to.
Right.
And so, yeah, we just kind of fell in love with it. Yeah.
Hmm. That's great. And the content and creation, ideation of it, it's just so well done. Like the website that you have, I was spending some time on it this week, and it was just like just so well put together. I love it. I mean,
Thank you.
just clearly a labor of love, of attention to detail, of craftsmanship that you don't see these days. And to take kind of older properties that had a storied history that are kind of you know have been beat up and need a new chapter, a new life. That's great. I'd love to hear that. I mean, Eagle Point, we've done projects, a number of them, converting kind of roadside motels or roadside inns and renovate and reposition them. And they take, they're so hard to do. I mean, they take so much time and effort and energy. As an investment thesis, it's hard to kind of justify that time and effort. But from a kind of a humanistic, what you create, right? It has meaning. It has a sense of place, what we like to call a sense of place, and depth to it and character that you can't replace. So I don't know. I guess it's like you kind of look at it from perspective of you're an artisan in a way. And it doesn't happen kind of in isolation. It happens with like a team, right? And you
Yep.
have to, and it sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and you kind of have to go through trial and error a lot of it, to get the team working together. And I'd love to hear a little bit about, how you've kind of your journey with Tillman Island, Hope Valley. Like, how does, what are some of the setbacks as well as what of the successes that you've seen in those properties?
Yeah. Both of them are 100% labor is love, but they're also, left brain, right brain,
Mm-hmm.
hardcore. Like we underwrite really hard, we pencil it out, and so we try to stretch the capital as much as we can. And so I'm super involved with the whole design process and FF&E and just really trying to maximize, okay, how to deploy the capital, get the most out of the asset and get the best guest experience. And
Mm-hmm.
so that takes a lot of brain damage. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say Tillman was a 6 month renovation, and I lived at the property, and I lived in LA, and I traveled, I think, 27 red eyes within the first year, and
Right.
it was gnarly, and
Yeah.
it was really hard. So 80
Yeah.
hours a week for a year, and from the ground up on
Right.
the other side of the coast was tough. That
Right.
was the hardest part.
Yeah.
Um, but then, when it opened, it was like kapow, and that was super fun to see, because when you work that hard and then it happens, you're like, oh, this was worth it, and
Right.
the journey is worth it,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, Sorensen's, which is now Wylder Hope Valley, was a very famous mountain resort, and it took 4 years to acquire because it had a lot of hair. It had environmental problems. It had
Wow.
title wasn't clean. It was a very difficult land use project, and so that just took a long time to sort out. And I just hunt in there and hunt in there and hunt in there, and it's the old adage, persistence.
Wow. Hmm.
You don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. I'm definitely not, but persistence does pay.
Right. And I identify with the whole red eye, right? Because that's like, because being an East Coast and West Coast person, it's like you fly out there. This the most efficient way is just to try to sleep on the plane ride out, and then you get there, you're kind of like a zombie for the first day, and you finally get into the things, and then you're by the end of the week, you're like, okay, I'm gonna fly back, and it's I totally identify with that, and part of don't get me wrong when I said, oh, like investment and all that stuff, like these hotels are profitable, like these hotels make money. Is it is more of a function of like time and effort that you spend to create, right? 80 hours
Yeah,
weeks, right? It's like versus a bigger property is you get more bang for your buck from your time perspective. But I think these properties, are like gems, right? If you can get there, good basis, invest wisely, bring on the right team, get that the essence there, to bring it to life. It's amazing. But it is like a attention to detail, because in my experience, in our experience, Eric lives and breathes it as well, is that, when you have smaller hotel properties, the same amount of effort and attention into, executing a deal or working with the team. But there's a little bit less room for error, because they're not a big property where there's like, okay, well, they have a larger budget, or they have redundancies, right? If someone doesn't show up for their shift, it's like everybody has to be flexible. So it's like operating smaller hotels requires that much more adaptability and flexibility. Would you say, in your experience, like operations, like how do you get your team, right? Like, I guess there's two components. There's the creation, the artistic vision, the branding side, the design side, the philosophy and programming aspect, right? To get it launched and up and running. I'd love to hear kind of who you had as part of your team to do that, and then
sure.
once it's up and opening, kind of how do you keep it going? How do you maintain that with the operations team and F&B and all those things? So I'd love to dive in there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think smaller properties are interesting because you can command a higher rate if you do it right. And
Mm-hmm.
so, we've been able to lift the rate tremendously just based on the experience, and that gives us the ability to hire a quality executive team as
Hmm.
opposed to like not. And
Hmm.
it's all about the basis though, and I think that's the key, because if you have the basis, then you can spend a more capital to improve the asset, and then you can get a higher rate in return, and then you can hire a better team. And
Hmm.
at the end, it comes down to the GM and the culinary leader, because even if food and beverage is a huge profit center, it's going to drive, going to wag the dog on the room side. And so I think those two positions are
Hmm.
key. And we have great GMs and we have great food and beverage leaders. And my job is to kind of lead, direct, cajole, and asset manage.
Hmm.
And we just constantly, I don't want to say reinvent, but we're just always evolving. We're always getting better. We're always trying new things. We're not, we're just constantly evolving. And I think um, that's the key in programming. And we bring a lot of music in.
Hmm.
We work with the community. We're just always trying to have something going on, so your guests are surprised because they didn't expect to have that. And then the local community is like, oh cool, let's go check it out, what's happening there. You become kind of like a built-in entertainment center for that local community.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so yeah, that's kind of what we focused on.
And how do you get like food and beverage? Is it, do you find like a local chef, or is it, how, like, food and beverage is always tricky because it's so critical to the execution of a property. But it sometimes can be a loss leader, right? And so like how do you find that balance in both Soren, the cafe, and also in Tillman Island?
Yeah, I mean, for this season, we have a ton of outdoor space at both properties, so it was just a home run of like picnic tables everywhere,
Hmm.
music spaced out, beverage program. You got to have a
Hmm.
great beverage program, and
Hmm.
I think you have to try to stretch from like noon that into that 3 to 5 period of time. We like to do music from 3 to 5,
Hmm.
so you have a lunch crowd, then you have music and hang out late, cocktails, and it's creating the vibe of like looking at the mountains or looking at the water, and having that view of just wanting to hang out, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
um and then you go into dinner, and then you try to supplement it with weddings over the fall or shoulder seasons, to stretch that season, and that so you don't pack weddings or big events when you have your high season. You try
Yeah.
to push those to the shoulder.
Hmm.
And you try to not lose as much money in the off season, and you try to maximize in the main season. And you know you got to watch your cost of
You
goods.
gotta watch
Bottom.
it, right? I hear you. I hear you. It's like it's like that. Squeeze the juice when there's the lemon, right? And that's the yeah. It's like managing weddings. Like we get so much demand, but it's like when we don't need it, when we are already going to sell out, and so it's like yeah, it's kind of cajoling the wedding party. Say hey, well, what about late October? And
it's it's a famous saying I have, and I say it all the time. It's not what you can book; it's what you can move.
yeah,
And anybody can book a wedding in August, but can you do it in November, or can you do it in January? Can you do it in February?
right, right,
And if you can do that, then you're onto something. You
right,
know.
yeah. Talk about in finding Tillman, in finding Hope Valley, like did you have a team, or is it like design side, you mentioned Vincent, like how does that come together for you?
Um, yeah, well, so Hope Valley, we use OMFG Co. as our design firm there out of Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Great group of guys. And my friend Joey at Studio Tech helped me with Tillman.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've used local architects of record.
Mm-hmm.
We set a budget, we walk them through, we kind of tell them, hey, this is what we want to do. And we try to stick to natural materials. We try to like not over design at all.
Mm-hmm.
The goal of Wylder is to make it feel like it's always been there,
Mm-hmm.
and then it doesn't look like that it's been designed. We just really try to keep it super natural, and
Yep.
And yeah, so our approach is super hands-on. I work directly with the contractors at Hope Valley. We have incredible craftsmen, Sierra Sustainable Builders, who are, real craftsmen, and we use all natural materials and oak and redwood, and it just, the execution just gives this like very, it's like it's been there feel. And
Hmm. That's great.
I think for our brand and what we're trying to do, that's important for us.
Right. Right. And how I do have to ask the question on COVID, like how, not I do, but I'm just curious, like you mentioned outdoor spaces, outdoor, like tell us how has COVID impacted the business, your business? What have you changed and done to adapt to it? What is kind of how do you see this kind of into 21?
Yeah, so like everyone else, we had to shut down in California for
Hmm.
March to May, and Tillman, we stayed open for to go food, and
Hmm.
I kept the executive teams of both properties, and we actually accelerated the renovation in Hope Valley, just because we could,
Hmm.
and that was a smart strategic move, because we had 2 months of like just going faster without any
Hmm.
guests on the property. And then we opened up, and because the brand is outdoor, drive market, we have yurts and cabins and vintage Spartan, and you don't have to go through a lobby, you don't have to go through an elevator, you
Hmm.
walk right into your space. It was pretty much on, and super busy at both properties. And outside, obviously we follow all the protocols to a T, the CDC protocols.
Hmm.
But just having outdoor space and picnic tables was like a home run,
Yeah.
because we just spread all the picnic tables, and we
Hmm.
ran the business the same exact way, to be honest. And
Yeah.
Tillman has all the most of the rooms are exterior corridor,
Hmm.
which has never been more valuable,
Right.
Stephen.
Yeah.
So I don't, I love exterior corridor. I embrace exterior corridor. I think it's awesome. So,
Hmm.
um, so yeah, and so I think we just put up a huge tent on the outside of Hope Valley on the deck, and we're going to heat it, and we just increased our outdoor dining space in Hope Valley, and we're
That's
super
great.
psyched. We're super psyched about that, and Tillman, we renovated the ballroom last season going in, hoping to do a lot more weddings and a lot more corporate retreat business.
Hmm.
And so we just took the dining room and we moved it into the event space and spread everything out, because it's a 2,000 square foot ballroom,
Nice.
and that's going to be our dining room. So we just created more amenity space. We bought more FF&E to be able for people to relax and hang out. So I think a lot of it is just having the space and having the right FF&E layout approach, and
Hmm.
heaters and music. And if you do those things, people want to get out and hang out.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
they feel safe in their space, they're going to hang out.
Right. Right. And have you seen, these drive-to destinations are seeing record, visitation levels, right, outside major metropolitan areas.
Yep.
How has that impacted, your properties in terms of, has it expanded the season? Has it made it harder to manage the people who are coming outside of the urban zones, or what's your experience been so far?
Um, Experience has been awesome. We just had an incredible October with leaf season in Hope Valley. Tillman's been really strong. September, yeah, I would say the fall's been great because
Yeah.
people were cooped up and they just want to get out. Drive markets, if you look historically back to even 9/11, drive markets did incredibly well after 9/11 because
Hmm.
people were afraid of flying, and then they did really well after '08 because you just save money versus getting on a plane and the whole thing.
Hmm.
And so, I think drive market assets that are leisure based are about as bulletproof to these kind of big, moments in the economic, history, versus urban assets or, fly to assets, which,
Yeah.
are more challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we have properties from kind of outdoor oriented outside of major urban markets to urban markets, and in destination fly-to markets, and it's really a mixed bag. The properties we have the Anvil in Jackson Hole, the Soundview and Harborfront on the North Fork of Long Island, Calistoga Motor Lodge up in Napa. Um, you know, some have done phenomenally well, record revenues, and some are like challenged because of the COVID or because of fire and smoke and all that thing. And then some markets have yet to recover. You know, destination markets, fly to markets, it's been very challenging. Hopefully things will get better. How do you see kind of 2021? What is your plan or strategy with 21 for your hotels?
I mean, we don't have to like really strategize. We're going to keep doing what we're doing,
Hmm.
and we're not going to change because we are who we are, and it's
Hmm.
working because that's who we are. You know,
Right.
we're drive destination, nostalgic, magical properties with a lot of land and outdoor space, and
Hmm.
so I don't see us changing.
Hmm.
You know, we're going to keep doing what we're doing because it's working, and
Right.
it's what we've always been.
Hmm.
So I think 2021, I think it's going to be a huge year. I think it's going to be an amazing year. I
Hmm.
think I'm super bullish on 21. I think we have, I think, 14 weddings on the books in Tillman, and people who couldn't get married in 2020 are
Yeah.
now booking like crazy in 21.
Right.
And I think the first half of the year will be probably less as robust as the second half of the year,
Hmm.
as the country gets better at dealing with COVID. I think we're
Yeah.
only going to get better. So I think meeting and corporate business is going to start to really come back on the smaller executive side.
Yeah.
And then I think big meeting and convention stuff, this is my prediction, will be coming back huge in 2022 because, again, I could be wrong, but I think people are sick and tired of sitting in their home and they want to interact with other humans. So
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I've heard the whole pent up need to reconnect. They were just talking about the other day, like there's a nasal spray that you can do to you take it every day so you won't get COVID, and it's like, okay, great, like that would be sign me up for that. Um,
Yeah.
I think there's going to be therapeutics or ways to figure out around this. So I'm more optimistic than that we're kind of through the worst of it, even though it's like record cases and all that stuff. And just be smart and be safe about it. So I'm
Yeah.
hopeful. So where to from here in terms of, are you looking at new markets? You've got, it sounds like Hope Valley renovations were accelerated. Is that all done, or is there still more to do?
It's
Um,
that property will never be done. There's just so much more. There's 150 acres.
right.
We can always build more yurts. We are a huge fan of yurts, Stephen.
Yeah.
They're incredible. Like the build concept, guest day experience, and the efficiency of like getting it up
Yeah.
and done is just
Yeah. That's great. Now we looked at those. How do you handle the bathroom situation? Is it attached to each unit? Is it centralized? I'm curious.
we did
Yeah.
7. We did 6 with bathrooms inside. We did soaking tubs,
Nice.
and we built a partition wall where the toilet and the sink is behind it, so it's all open air.
Oh, great.
So so putting the bathroom inside the yurt was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
And we did one off grid that was no bathroom that we get more super outdoorsy people to want to do.
Right.
But you gotta be that kind of person to want that experience, you know.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, I think it's going to be organic kind of growth. We're always kind of looking around and talking to people, and I think, like you said at the beginning, we're probably going to do one at a time, and it takes a lot of energy, and
Yeah.
I put everything into it, and that's we're going to stay with that model. That's how we like to do it.
That's great. That's great. And you know when you do, is it working with the locals, the zoning and planning? Is it particularly? I mean, every jurisdiction is different, but how is your experience so far with with the amount of acreage you have and doing it, like
Yeah.
working with the city? What were there challenges and issues that you had to deal with?
Yeah. And like every relationship, you have ups and downs, and you gotta finesse it. And I think once the more transparent you are about what you're doing and why you're doing it and how you're doing it,
Yeah,
and the more communication up front early on,
yeah.
the better. And both counties have been tremendous for us. And I think you have to like close on the asset. You have to have discussions earlier to them in your diligence period to like vet it. And they're usually pretty close to the mouth about like, yes, we're going to approve that, but you get kind of a sense or a vibe that like they're economically positive, biased. And
Hmm.
if you get that sense, then I think you have to take a leap of faith to work on it.
Right, right. Got it. And in terms of like, for folks out there who are on and curious about like understanding like, oh, I may have a lead. Like, what's the profile? What are you looking for your next Wylder location? Like, what are the attributes that you think, make like hit the strike zone for you?
Yeah. It depends a lot, where is it?
Hmm.
And what is the asset currently? And does it have a history? Does it have like cool moments already with the bones? Like to embrace. I mean, if you want to just talk like hardcore asset, it's like, could be 30 to 120 keys, but if it's 30 keys, it's got to have a pretty big ADR
Hmm.
and F&B and other ancillary income to make it worth it, right? And like you said, if it's 330 rooms, it's all the same amount of brain damage.
Hmm.
And so like, Colorado, Montana, Pacific Northwest, Florida Keys, upstate New York.
So basically
Surprise.
anywhere you're not saying, oh, like if you're up in Maine, like there's no geographic limit for where you want to go. Or you're saying, oh, well, maybe something outside of Arizona, or like, I'm just curious, like, where do you see?
Anywhere in the
Oh,
continental United States,
okay.
Hawaii, and surprising location. Like, didn't
Yeah.
expect it to be there. That's huge. I
Right.
think that's a big thing. And it's got to have bones. It's got to have some good bones going in. We might be able to build some more cabins or some more yurts or a
Yeah.
tree house, but like some bones going in. And yeah, like that it can be kind of an adventure to get to. Like the more weirder or harder to get to,
Mm. Interesting.
and it's the direct opposite of what a lot of investors are looking for.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna
And
say.
and so that's what appeals to me because we can usually buy it at a good basis. And you
Hmm.
know, if San Francisco is 3 or 4 hours away, or DC is 3 or 4 hours away, or like we like that, right?
Yeah. Interesting. So it's like you're not necessarily trying to target like, oh, it has to be within 2 hour drive of whatever. That's conventional wisdom. And it's like, oh, it has to be at least 50 rooms or whatever. I mean, so you could be out, you're just looking for unique venues, not just, I'm sorry, I don't mean to kind of put words in your mouth, but you're looking for kind of unique destinations that speak the stand on zone, that have decent bones, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
and it could be far flung, like, you
yeah.
know interesting. And I think you look at Liz Lambert, right? She's done amazing things in Marfa, Texas. You have some really truly upscale, with like, twin farms and that sort of thing too. It's an interesting, um, because you really have very little, if any, I mean, outside of urban locations, right? Would you do anything urban, or you not of interest? Or I'm just curious.
I'm unenthusiastic about urban.
Right, right. I hear you. So I mean, that is such a huge canvas, right? I mean, across the country, having these different markets. I mean, I've like so many markets in my head that I would think like, okay, this would be amazing. but where do you find the right bones, right? Is it like a former inn, or is it a former industrial, kind of thing that is really cool and you can make it different? I mean, it's just the canvas is so wide and so large for what you're looking to do. It's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rail stations or something like that, like some amazing, and it doesn't need to be like near a national park or a major destination, or can it stand on its own? Like, do you feel like, like if you look at the Amman in Utah, right? That's like, amazing location, but it's in the middle of the desert, right? And
Right.
you know, that's why
that's
that's why
why
it's
it's
so
so
awesome.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And
Uh,
yeah, and it's like, what are the characteristics that you feel like do you need? Is it the community that you need to be in, or is it the setting, or is it the buildings, or yeah? I'm just
I
trying
think
to yeah.
I think it could vary. And like Hope Valley is 12 miles from civilization. Like,
Hmm. Yeah,
it's amazing. It's 12
yeah,
miles from anything. And
right.
so Tillman is at the end of the road in a little island. You have to go over a drawbridge, and you're in a different world, and you can barely get internet at both places. So
Interesting.
if the internet is really bad, and you can't get it. I like it.
That you like it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So, we were going to charge you extra to unplug.
Right. Now, Tillman Island, how far is it away from like DC and like if you were
Yeah,
driving there? I'm not familiar with that part of the world.
2 hours from DC, depending on what's going on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
Okay.
But if everything's good on the bridge, 2 hours. 90 minutes from Baltimore, 2 hours from Philly, 2 hours from South Jersey, Wilmington. We get a ton of New Yorkers because it's 4 hours from New York, and more New Yorkers are going down there.
Interesting.
So yeah, um,
So people are looking for an escape, and people are looking for an outlet. I mean, they're not looking at convenience. It's more of like, I want to be at the destination. What's your length of stay over there? Like,
it's usually 2 nights.
yeah,
It's usually 2 nights. You're sold out every Friday, Saturday, pretty much in season and
right.
through the fall, and then it really picks up midweek. June through Labor Day, and then you stretch the fall, and then you do some off shoulder. But the key is they're all season resorts. We don't shut down,
Okay. I was just going to
and
ask that.
yeah. So Hope Valley's strong all through the winter because of skiing, winter activities. So yeah, the key is that they're all season resorts. We don't ever want to shut down.
Right. And your crew there, like during the off season, you know, like writers retreats, or now, like, I think, sorry, I'm segueing into it as I get a different thought in my head. It's like, we're seeing everybody work from home now, and organizations need to get their teams together. We're seeing kind of a resurgence in a way of small teams to work, remotely, and they want to do. They don't want to do it in the office. They don't want to go, and they want to find something, like a Wylder Hotel or a Soundview or Anvil or Calistoga Motor Lodge, like, would be ideal for that, because you can get together, bond with your team in a unique destination, see each other you haven't seen in like close to a year, and actually, have your own little pod, right? Are you
Yeah.
starting to see that right now?
We're seeing family reunions big time, like
Oh,
families who
interesting.
want to get together for their grandparents or like in a safe place. Like
Yeah.
we're seeing a ton of that. The corporate stuff is really small and really focused. It's just starting to come back, but very minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very small companies who sit in a circle or outside, and um,
Hmm.
but mostly families who just want to see each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing about this whole COVID thing, is that, we're social animals. We want to connect, whether it's, definitely family. I haven't seen my mom in over a year, and she's in Hong Kong, but she's safer over there, and I'm like, I'd love you to come over, but we're raging COVID in America right now. So it's like, the last thing I
Yeah,
want to do is endanger that. But yeah, I feel like, at least on the corporate side, that is going to be a focus. Small teams to get together, because I know, like, um, companies that are 100% work from home, even before COVID, they made intentionally to get together every quarter, prior to the travel restrictions. And that's how they connected. And they would have 2-3 day sessions of just bonding and working together. And, you know, that is like, I think that is going to be a thing in 21 as people start planning, you know, how do they, you know, if they're not going to go to the office and they're all remote in different destinations, they're going to pick a spot and they're going to say, hey, let's go here. You know, let's go to Hope Valley and spend 3 days outdoors and do our thing.
And then micro weddings, micro corporate retreats.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to start off small, and then it's just going to keep growing.
Yep. Exactly. If there's any questions from folks on, you can put it into the Instagram feed, and I'll ask those questions. But you know, there is a question here. We could all use a digital detox right now from Dreamer, Doer Design. Totally agree. Especially this week. Yeah, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, we're such a socially connected industry, and whether it's like food and beverage and meeting together as ILC for events, you know, it's so tough for people who need to connect with one another. And I'm grateful to hear that like reunions are happening in small pods, and that's great that people plan and do that, and it's not like, oh, just a Zoom call.
Yeah.
I wonder how, you know, like how that will evolve and what you're seeing on that side, like, you know.
I think outdoor meetings.
Right. Yeah.
You know, sitting in a field, sitting in a yard. You know, outdoor meetings.
Exactly. I think that, and so, you know, outdoor heaters are probably in short supply right now.
Yes.
Right now that cold weather is upon us, and it's
tents, heaters, fire pits.
Right.
Outdoor FF&E. Those are good businesses.
Things.
Yeah. Those are good businesses right now.
Right. No, exactly. And that's like the new normal that we're working through. Interesting. And do you, like, how is your team handling this through this process? Like, did you have, you know, it was really hard for us when we relaunched our hotels in the spring, like late spring, like May, June time. People were very fearful. Like, did you have challenges with reopening?
Yeah, I mean, just you know, I think both of our staffs did incredible jobs. They're all vested. They're believers. They wanted to see the properties successful, right? Like they feel like they're stakeholders in these new opening businesses, and so they worked hard. They followed the rules. You have to train the guests on how to behave. Some guests behave better than others, and you know, now we're like through that learning curve. It's kind of like, you know, it's just like normal, right? And so, there was little ups and downs and hiccups and here and there, but you know, overall, it was just a lot of hard work. You know,
right?
It's just a lot of hard work.
Yeah. And what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, I guess.
Yeah.
It's you know, you really kind of get together with your teams and do it and creating a service to society that I don't think, you know, right now it's like the human connection is super important. And I think the appreciation of that is even more now than ever before.
Yes. I would say guest satisfaction was very high, just because people were just happy to be out, you know, and everyone was generally in a very good mood. And once you get them with their masks off, sitting at a picnic table, and they feel distance and they're relaxing, it's all good.
Yeah, you know? It's all good. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Any other like parting thoughts, other things we didn't cover that you want to bring up? But I think we're up to 45 minutes here.
No, this was great. Thank you for your time. Thank you to everything that the ILC is doing. And I think this is great what you guys are doing. And I think people are really enjoying it. And we have no other choice either. So we just got to keep doing it, right?
Right. Yeah. Just keep on plowing through. It's exactly right. No, thank you, John, for what you're doing, because you're doing the you're doing the creative, the road less traveled, the harder path, but I think it's more rewarding overall. And I think, you know, people should recognize that. And it's definitely you could go that, you know, oh, just try to make as much money as I can, that's not the point. You know, applaud you for that, and keep doing what you're doing. And let's find other Wylder hotels and get more people on the Wylder hotel system.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
the
you.
support.
Yeah.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right, thank you, John. Have a good one.
Take care.
Okay, bye.